So as part of our yesterday session, we understood more about Lambda expressions. So how we are building the Lambda expression from a functional interface, how many ways we can construct Lambda expressions for a functional interface point of view. What are the shortcuts we are having? What are the shortcuts Java is allowing? So we understood all the points by taking each and every example. So continuation to that only, I'll take one more example to the Lambda expression with respect to user defined data types, because the reason is yesterday we taken all about with respect to the parameters belongs to what string primitives as well as string data type. But is I mean we can, it's all about same thing, just like method arguments, what data types we can pass. Sometimes we can pass non-primitives, right? Non-primitives means user defined classes, predefined classes, instances like employee. So in the method argument level, we can pass employee type objects, product type objects, something like that. Non-primitive user defined classes, instances, or user defined classes, references. So those are all we can pass, right? So one example I'll take with respect to non-primitive data type functional interface abstract method, which is taking non-primitive data type, and then I'll try to implement Lambda expressions for that, and then we will move to the a concept called as exception handling. Actually, I said we will discuss about predefined functional interfaces called as these four. But to discuss these four again, you need to know a small concept called as generics. So you need to know about a concept called as generics. So that's why I moved this below. That means we will discuss once we are done with generics also. So generics I will discuss as part of collection framework. So whenever I discuss generics, then again we will come back and we will discuss these four functional interfaces. What is the importance of these four functional interfaces? But anyway, meanwhile you will also have a idea like how you are creating the lambda expressions from the functional interfaces for different scenarios point of view. So then we will discuss it. But that's what, without generics knowledge we can't discuss this. That's why I'm just moving below, we will discuss it. So that's why I'll start exception handling. Once we are done with exception handling, then I'll start with the collection framework. So the moment I started collection framework, then I'll discuss what is generics, and as part of generics, and then we will go for the collection framework as well as that predefined functional interfaces and stream API. All the things comes as part of the collection framework. So that is what my idea here it is. So let's take a lambda expression with respect to object point of view, and then we'll start exception handling. Okay, my point here it is. What is the point of object here it is? Yes, we created. It's all about simply, if you take a functional interface, so this method is taking all primitive data types. Similarly, this is also a string data type. This is also, I mean, zero parameters. And if you go here, this is also primitive data types. So my point is, we can pass non-primitives as well. Like any other class objects, other class references and all, we can define as part of the abstract method. And we will create a lambda expression for that by using that object also. So let's take an example and then let's see how to do that. Okay, so what I will do, first I'll create a functional interface. For example, I'm going to take a class called as employee, something like that. Okay. Um, I'll take my functional interface name, something like this. I taken package name as operations, employee operations, something like that. Okay. So my point here it is, I'm going to make this as a functional interface. And the moment I made functional interface, definitely this interface should contain one abstract method. So what I'm going to do here it is, string is the return type, and apply, like that I taken a method name itself apply, and then here generally I taken parameters of integer string, right? But what I'm trying to say here it is, I'm going to take an employee reference, like employee reference. So that means so this will take always employee object. So in this case, this functional interface abstract method apply method internally taking what object? employee type object, employee information. That means employee instance. So that is what my idea here it is. So then that means first of all we need to create a employee class. So let me create an employee class also. So I'm creating an employee class. Okay, fine. And then I'll take, I think you all know Pojo classes, all these things we already discussed. If you are not remember, please go back and listen the things. Private string employee ID, private string name, and then followed by private double salary, something. You can take all other information also if you want. So you can take all gender, all these things, etc. etc. Now I'll make this class as a Pojo class. Okay, I'll add constructors also. Constructor using fields, and I'll do source generate, and I'll add a default constructor also, and I'll add toString method also. We are all discussed this, guys. That's why I'm just taking all the things, like I want to remind you one more time about all these topics. That's why I'm taking. We discussed the toString method also. Okay, so now I made my employee class as a project class. Okay, that's okay. Now my intention here it is. In this case, now I'm good. Now the compile error is gone. That means the apply method in this case taking what employee reference. So whoever is providing implementation for this apply method, they should pass always employee object. Until yesterday we taken only, like I taken long int. So that's why I passed here long and integer values, like numeric values, long value, integer value, double value, like that. But this time I want to pass always an employee object simply. So let's create a lambda expression for this. Okay, so I'm taking a main method in this case. Yeah. So let's start building lambda expressions for that functional interface called as employee operations. Okay. So first, for which interface we are doing? Employee operations. I said already, go with this kind of practice until you are getting comfort. It will give you very clear picture. So this is the interface you are creating, and for this interface, this is the method you are having. Okay, so now cool. Now let's start writing the lambda expression. My point of view, for example, requirement is add employee information. Assume like a real-time project. So tomorrow you have some employee information like his employee ID, all these things, and then you want to store that information into DB level, database level. So that means once you know advanced Java, then you will come to know that what is a database and all. So how to insert data into database, like that. Now see how I'm trying to do here it is. For so add employee information, I can do add, I can update employee information, I can delete employee information, I can, okay, I can, yeah, so I can do all these operations generally with respect to employee. Sometimes I can delete existing employees, I can modify employees information, like that. I can add a new employee information to the database level. So now I want to make sure implementation for this functional interface to achieve all these requirements. Lambda, okay, with respect to first requirement point of view, add employee. So what I'm trying to do here it is, this is the functional interface we are trying to provide lambda expression. Okay. And then something like I'm making add employee equal to, now we are, we will start beginning the or implementing the lambda expression. So how to provide the lambda expression? I said yesterday. So how many parameters method arguments you are having? Only one method argument you are having. So the moment you are having only one method argument, so you can take like this as it is. It's a okay, you can provide implementation like this. And the moment you are having only one line of implementation, I said you no need of curly braces also. You can directly write that one line logic and you can end with semicolon. But in this case, assume I have more than one line. So that's why I'm opening the curly braces and I'm ending with semicolon. And still why I'm getting compile time error here it is. The reason is it is always expecting a return string value. So that's why return, so some string value, for time being dummy value I'm returning. So that means now here you will provide all the logic like sending to database, whatever it is, sending info to database, like all the information you can write logic here. For example, I'll write like this: sys out of, yeah, sending employee info to database. Okay, and then sys out of employee. So I'm just printing what employee information and all. So now here I'll write like employee added successfully plus employee dot. Okay, so somewhat I implemented the logic. Now I implemented what lambda expression, and here I take an employee. And yesterday I said when you have only one parameter or maybe more than one parameter, data types are optional. Even though you are not provided, Java will consider employee data type only. So that's optional. Even I said one more point, like when you have only one method argument, even we can avoid this parenthesis braces also. So it's all about you are making your lambda expression very precise and it looks like a mathematical expression point of view. You are making your implementation. So that means this solution is okay or this is also okay. All are same. So it's all optional cases point of view. You can add or you can eliminate. You can keep it. It's up to your choice. But tomorrow when you are understanding others code or when you are trying to attending any exams and whenever they remove these parts and whenever they given lambda expression like this, you should not feel something like it's a compiled error. They are missing data type, they are missing parenthesis braces. No, it's right only. It's allowed. It's allowed. So that's why you have to remember all these points. Okay. So now this is all about. I can keep like this as it is. Fine. Now you know how to call the lambda expressions. So how? Now executing lambda expressions or calling lambda expressions means what you will do, lambda expression name you will take dot, and what is the method name? Apply is the method name. So apply. Okay. Now for apply level, what information you have to pass? Employee reference. So what employee reference data you have to pass? This employee reference. So that means what you have to pass? Employee object, nothing but. So let me create an employee object. Employee equal to new employee, and I'm taking directly values here itself 100 and followed by Dilip and followed by salary, some salary like that I given. Okay. So now I am passing this employee reference here. So this is how you are going to implement lambda expressions by using okay non-primitive data types also. It's very easy, simple. It's all about method arguments concept. There is nothing. Instead of method implementation point of view, you are writing lambda expression. But the moment you open curly braces, whatever you are doing internal inside the curly braces, it's all about the rules and regulations of method implementation. So that is how you have to do. So this is the lambda expression name. So you're calling. Now the moment you are calling, whenever this line is executed, what will happen? It will take employee reference. That means this employee information will go here. And from there, sending employee information to database and employee information. And finally, you are going to see this return statement also. So see here, sending employee info to database. And then what is the employee information you passed here, and same thing you got here. This is where I printed, and I got a message also. Okay, I think if you want to see here, message string response sysauto response. So that method is producing response, right? Some string value it is returning. I'm holding it. So now employee added successfully, and the employee is Dilip. So this is how you can create Lambda expression. Now it's all about add employee. Can we create same way with respect to update and delete? Means yes, simply write one more Lambda expression with respect to update operation, delete operation point of view. For example, delete employee. So now what you will do, you will write a logic, you will implement a Lambda expression, and that Lambda expression internally contains a logic to delete data from the database. In this case, what you are doing, inserting data into database. Now it's all about deleting data from the database point of view. Yeah. So for which functional interface you are writing Lambda expression means employee operations is the functional interface, and I'm creating new Lambda expression called as delete employee, and then equal to yes. Now you started writing Lambda expression. So here you have one parameter means you can take anything else. So you can take a reference variable. E representing what here? So E representing in this case, I taken a reference variable as E. So in this case, E representing employee data type variable. So E is nothing but employee reference. That's all. Employee data type variable. Argument name, Lambda argument name belongs to employee data type. You can take A, B, C, X, Y, Z, employee, EMP, whatever you want, you can take here. So here I take an EMP, right? I can take anything. It's simply like method argument name, similar to method argument name. Okay, so I take an E. So that means now E contains always employee type reference. So E employee instance. Okay, now see here, assume you are having more than one line again in this case also. So that's why I open curly braces, and it is always expecting a return string value. So that's why I'm return employee deleted successfully. So employee deleted successfully. So I'm writing second Lambda expression for the functional interface employee operation. And this is all about employee point of view. So that means plus e dot get who deleted his name. So here again, you will write your own logic. What is being logic deleting data from database. So in this case also deleting employee info from database like that, and you will write whatever it is finally. So in this case, it's all about E. Why? You take an argument name as a E this time. So that's why you can take like this. I'll avoid the confusion like this. So you take an E is the reference. That's why whatever the current object comes here, that E comes here, that E will take taken from here like that. So now if you want to execute this Lambda expression, yes. So how to execute? Again, same thing. What is your Lambda expression name? So whenever you want to delete an employee information, simply now in this method level, you will use this Lambda expression and you will call apply, and you will pass employee information. For example, what I will do is I'll create one more employee object emp2, and his ID is 200, something name is Suresh, some salary like that. Now I'm passing employee to object here. So that means what will happen immediately whenever apply method you are calling with employee to object, that means this all object went here as a e point of view. So this is why this entire object is referenced with this e variable. Then immediately JVM enters inside the lambda expression body. So then it will execute all the logic whatever you written, and finally it will return some message also, and that return message you can capture here by similar to like this, like response point of view. So this time how it is knowing that which lambda expression is executing, because you are very clearly given lambda expression name. So that's why it is going to that lambda expression name. So it will enter into lambda expression, and this employee to object is pointed to this e level. E is holding to the, so that means whatever employee to object you created with the data, that is referenced by the e reference also. So that means e dot get name means you will get Suresh, or whatever the information you are having, that also you will get. It's all simple again method only. Only thing is we understood like creating lambda expressions with non-primitives. That's all. Nothing much new in today's session. See, deleting employee info from the database, and this is all information deleted. If you want, you can take response equal to sort of response. Yeah, see here, employee information deleted successfully. So now I created total two lambda expressions in this case. One is add employee, logic related to adding the employee information to the database. One more lambda expression for deleting employee. Similarly, you can do for updates, reading data, whatever you want. Based on that, you will provide your own logic as part of your implementation, lambda expression, and you will execute those lambda expressions always like this. So that is what about lambda expressions. I'm telling you one more time, please go through the lambda expressions. Nowadays the programming style is changed. It's all about, I said, declarative programming. That's why I taken 2 3 classes with respect to lambda expressions. So please understand thoroughly, and please make sure practicing lot of examples. And if you need more examples also, you can get it from the internet, or you can do one more thing also. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so so you can just try to get details from the internet also, as well as in my YouTube channel also. Earlier 6 7 months back or 8 months back, I created one session about lambda expressions, functional interfaces and lambda expression. I think same theory wise I explained there and here also same, but if you want more examples, probably I discuss different examples there, so that you may covered with different examples in different sessions, right? So that's why I'm saying, but theory wise, content wise, I am the only person taken that information also. But only thing is more examples. That is why I'm trying to say. So if you go here, I think somewhere I created, and I got a good appreciation for that also. So if you see interfaces and lambda expressions, so just go through this. In case if you want more examples, probably I discussed different examples here. Today different example, yesterday different example. So I will make always content as dynamic, right? So that's why you may covered with different examples in this case. So it's a 1 hour session, but we discussed it 3 hours from last 2 3 days. So that's why we got a lot of knowledge in our session itself. But in case if you want, just refer this session also. Okay. So that is all about functional interfaces and lambda expressions. And now let's start entering into a new topic. So this predefined functional interfaces I'll discuss once we are done with the generics concept, and that generics I'll discuss as part of the collection framework. So that's why I just moved down. Now let's start a new topic and called as very important exception handling in Java. So it's a new concept. See, if you know the technique how to write lambda expressions in such a way like this, so then you can easily write the lambda expression. You should not confuse, okay? You should not confuse with lambda expressions. You can easily handle the what? Writing lambda expression. You can easily write lambda expressions. That's what my point here it is. And if you want one, I'll take one more. Okay, I'll cover as part of the function all those things point of view, lambda expressions point of view. I'll cover few more examples when we come back to these functional, predefined functional interfaces, especially these four data types. Four, we will discuss more examples also. But meanwhile, you can practice. Okay, so let's come back to the exception handling. It's a different concept and a individual concept, and very important also with respect to real time interview as well as must and should know topic. So, what is an exception handling? What is the purpose of exception handling? We'll try to understand right now. Okay. Yeah. So, first of all, what is an exception? Then we'll try to understand handling. So, what is exception in this case? If you are decoding that exception handling, first of all, what is an exception? Even we will use this word exception in our day-to-day life also. So, like what? For example, kind of we will use this word every day in our real life also. Exception person. So this is the exception scenario. This is the exceptional case. So he's an exceptional guy. He's an exceptional person. So that means some kind of you're treating that person in such a way different, or maybe you're ignoring that person, or maybe he's somewhat different. So such a way we will use a word called as exception generally, right? So let's see the dictionary meaning of exception. Exception meaning I want. Here, generally, that's what I said. Exceptional guy we used to see, right? Excluded. That's what I tried to say. Ignoring, excluding. Such a way we will say like a is. That means we are trying to make him as a excluding. Okay, we are ignoring. So that kind of thing. Then that scenarios generally we will use this generic terminology called as exception, right? So that's what a general statement doesn't follow a rule. In such cases generally we'll use to use a word called as exception. People who are not following rules and regulations, something is not happening as per the rules, then we will say like exception scenarios, exception guy, exception person, something like that. Okay, so some kind of that's what irregularity, deviation, all these things comes under the exception point of view. This is the dictionary meaning. Now with respect to the Java point of view, what is handle? Yeah, you know what is the meaning of handling point of view. Yeah. So you know what is the handling? Handling means you are bring taking into control. Taking into control. You're trying to control. That's all simple. So you know, right, how to handle the people. You know how to handle your parents. You know how to handle your friends. You know how to handle situations. So that means you are trying to control things. You will try to bring all the things into your control. So that is what kind of meaning called as handling. Now, when it comes to Java programming level, what is the point of exception handling? What is the word exception? In this case, Java language perspective, let's try to understand. Okay. So, generally, whenever we are writing logic in Java, okay, so we used to see there are two, for example, if you observe here, let's go here. Let me write some statements. Class. Okay, let me take a new project for exception handling. New project. Okay, cool. Now let me create a Java class also. So here I'll take a class called as some class name. It's okay. I want just a main method point of view. Yeah. So I have a class, whatever it is, just like this. Now, if you go here, for example, I written like this integer, okay, um, value 1. Okay, let's take like this integer value 1 equal to 10. Okay, that's okay. So that means now in this case, you don't have any compile time error. In this case, you don't have any compile time error. That means you followed all the rules and regulations. Now, for example, you know that variable names or maybe whatever the argument names when you are taking, you should not maintain any spaces. For example, I violated the rule, variable rules. What is the variable rules? We should not maintain any spaces in between the variable names. You can't maintain any time spaces. I given space, value space 1. I'm feeling like my variable name is value 1, but I given spaces. It's not allowed in Java language. So now you got what? You got an error. What error? Compile time error. You got a compile time error. So now see here compiler is saying, hey man, it's a syntax error. What is this space 1 and all? I'm not understanding or something like that. Even if I given value 1 also. So the moment you are giving without space, there is no compile time error. The moment you are violating the rule, then compiler is saying, hey, what is this? I'm not understanding. So like that, it is trying to give some syntax errors. That means some violation errors. So this is all comes under the compilation error. So that means you are breaking the rule. Whatever the rule defined by the Java compiler, you are breaking that rule. Then you got an error. And we used to call always this as a compile time error. From our day one Java training onwards, we used to see lot of compile time errors. Whenever you are compiling your program also from the notepad point of view, immediately compiler will say this is a compile time error, right? So if you see here run as Java application, then compiler will say some kind of compilation problem. At line number 7, it is all about, I mean, it is trying to say something like compilation problem, whatever it is. But we know that it is a compile time error. Okay, fine. So that means we understood right now one more word called as error. So error means what we did, what we understood as of now with respect to compile time error point of view. Something we are against the rule or we are breaking the rule. We are breaking the rule, right? So when especially with respect to compile time error point of view. Compile time error. Okay, fine. Now this is all about compile time point of view. Now with respect to Java point of view, what is an exception? Try to understand. In Java perspective, what is an exception? What is a point of exception handling? So let's try to understand here. Yeah. No. If I taken my program back again, so if you see here, for example, integer a equal to 10, integer b equal to 0, integer c equal to, or maybe I'll take like this, double result equal to a by b. So b value also 10, double result equal to a by b, and then sys out of result. Okay, so this is the program I written. So the moment I executed this program, what will happen? Immediately Java, okay, no compile time errors, that's fine. So it will enter main method, a equal to 10, b equal to 10, 10. So a by b, 10 by 10, you will get 0. So then it's all about, you will see the result here. So it's all about expected output. So what you got? That remainder value is 1. So that's why you got 1. 10 by 10 equal to 1. So that's why. If you given 5 also, then what will happen? You will see 2.4. Right? Fine. So this is all expected. For example, if you given 50 also, probably you will see some floating value, 0 point or maybe something, 0 0.0, whatever it is. Now understand the scenario here. I made b value as 0 and run as Java application. So what happened here it is, understand. So that means I'm executing my application, my logic is good, my syntax is good, my program is good. In this specific small example point of view, everything is good. I don't have any compile time error also. Okay, I don't have any compile time error also. That means syntaxes wise, everything is good. And I'm getting output also as expected whenever I have some proper different values. See now, if I'm executing my program, I'm getting expected output. If I given again here 2, I'm getting my expected output. If I'm giving again here some other values, I'm getting an expected output, 222 something, whatever it is. But the moment, whenever you are trying to make b value as 0, so that means in mathematics, in our mathematics, you know that, right? There is no, in mathematics point of view, we know that we can't divide any value with 0. So we can't divide any value with 0. So for example, if you go here, if you have same 10 divided by, sorry, 2, then you will get 5. That is okay. Now for example, 10 divided by 0, and see here, can't divided by 0. So we know that it's a fundamental mathematical rule, like we can't divide anything with 0. So that means it's not Java problem. It's all about data problem. It's all about your against of the mathematics. Mathematics itself saying like you can't divide it by the 0. So here what is the problem? The moment value b. So what is happening in this case? Until this, okay, when line number 9 is executed by Java JVM internally, 10 by, so it is taking 10 by, maybe whatever a value, 444 or whatever it is. So the moment it is taking, yeah, the moment it is taking a value, 444 by b value became 0. So you know that in mathematics itself, you can't divide values with 0. So it's not possible. There is no operation dividing with 0. Other than 0, you can do anything. But with 0, there is no possibility. So that means it's a, what's happening while executing your program. Understand the scenario. While executing the program, not compiling. Generally in Java, you have two scenarios. One is compilation and second the execution. When you are executing the program, so in this case, line number 7 is executed successfully, 8 is executed successfully. When it comes to line number 9, in this area especially, you got some, okay, because of b value, so Java JVM is not able to make a successful division in this case. One of the example I am taking. So that's why what Java is trying to say here it is. Now understand the error again. What Java is trying to say? Run as Java application. See now the message what you are trying to get. Exception, exception, the reason is divided by 0 and at what line? Testing a class main method level at line number 9. See, JVM is giving some information. Hey man, I can't execute this flow. So understand this scenario. I am able to execute line number 7. I am able to execute line number 8. But when it comes to line number 9, due to some problem, due to divided by 0, that means b value became 0. I am unable to execute this line successfully. I am unable to execute this line successfully. Like that, the moment it found some issue, it found some problem with respect to data, JVM immediately leaving the main method, terminating the process. That means JVM not moving to the next line. JVM is not understanding like, okay, this guy got some problem here. So let me ignore this line and let me move to the next line. No, it's not doing like that. The moment it found some issue with the execution flow, some abnormal situation, some abnormal, okay, scenario it encountered while executing the program, immediately JVM terminating the process at that line itself and leaving the Java program execution and throwing some error, throwing some information, showing some information to the console level. So that means what in this case Java is trying to do. For example, let's see here, sys out of making division. So I'm taking one small example, but similarly in future you will get a lot of different exceptions. I'll show you some exceptions also. Making division, so making division is completed and result is something like that you return. Now what will happen? For example, I given b value as 10. So that means 444 by 10. You know that is a valid value. B value in this case also B value became 10. So that means 444 by 10 means you will see like something like 44.4, something like that. So that means in this scenario, what will happen in a happy path, in a successful scenario point of view, the moment you are executing your program, the moment we are executing our program, what will happen? It will, in the JVM memory, a JVM enters into main method, A equal to 444, B equal to 10. So cool. Then it will come to line number 10. You know that JVM will execute always line by line. JVM will execute always line by line point of view. Okay, so then it will execute the line number 10. So this line will be printed here, making division, something like that. After that, it will come to next line. And the moment it comes to next line, first left hand side value, sorry, right hand side will be executed. A by B. What is the A value? 444 by 10. Yes, it is a B value is in this case good value. So that's why 44.4 value comes here into result level. So that means now result equal to 44.4. Now that means successfully this line is executed. This line executed successfully. On successful execution of line number 12, it is JVM moving to the line number 13. And then, the next line. Then this message will be printed. Making division is completed and result is. And then it will print the result, whatever the value it is having, 444. So that means the line number, whenever it entered into main method, by end of main method, everything executed successfully. Everything is executed successfully. So this is all we are assumption. Okay, right? So let's see here. Yes, true also. So you're seeing this statement, you're seeing this statement, you're seeing this statement. Okay, fine. But sometimes who knows? For example, a person entered this value as 0. Assume you are taking this output dynamically from the keyboard. You are asking a person. For example, see in the calculator, if I open the calculator, I entered 0. I don't know 0 should not be entered like that. By I given 0, then immediately what calculator is saying, hey man, you can't divide by 0. So similar point of view, a customer entered 0 value. Until and unless not entering 0, you are okay. For example, even if I am giving minus 10, whatever it is, your program is good. Your execution, everything is good. Until and unless B value become not 0. Now I given somehow 0. Somewhat you got the 0 value, some reason. Now what will happen in this scenario? Try to understand again. So in this case again, JVM enters A equal to 444, memory level, B equal to 0, 5. Then it will come to next line. Like this line will be printed like this, making division point of view. Making division like that, a line will be printed, cool. Then it will come to next line. Then here A by B, that means 444 by 0. Now whenever it is trying to do division here with 0, then immediately JVM come to know that this is an invalid operation. This cannot be done in a mathematics point of view also. It's a invalid scenario. Why B value became 0? That's the reason. So that means it is unable to perform a division operation in this case. So JVM found some difficulty. JVM found some issue. So then immediately what JVM is trying to say here it is, JVM found something like abnormal in this scenario. JVM found something like abnormal. At what line? Line number 12 level, especially in this scenario. So it is unable to make a successful division. That's why whenever it is failing to do the division itself, it can't make the result also. It can't ever assign any result also. So that means here it found some abnormal situation in this, especially in this area. Then what JVM is to do is, in this case, what JVM by default will do is immediately JVM terminate the process. I mean, before terminating the process, what JVM is to do, it will try to leave the main method. It will, that means understand the point. These lines are not executed. The moment some abnormal scenario, something is happened at line number 12 at runtime level, what's happening? Your JVM is leaving the main method and JVM will give some message also. JVM will show some message, and by showing that message, JVM immediately leaving the main method or maybe leaving the flow. Then how to execute this method? So how to execute rest of the logic? Assume you are having 100 lines next, but you are, because of this one small area, JVM immediately leaving the main method. So that is what problem here it is. That's what the scenario exception here it is. So that's why I asked a question, what is exception means? Something. See now, the rule it is okay. Here it found the problem. That's why it is saying, see, the problem is what JVM is saying very clearly. Some exception found divided by 0. The reason is why it, see in red color it is throwing some exception means, and at what line? In the main method of testing class, in the line number 12 level. So that means this line, it got some exception because of divided by 0, and then JVM not executing rest of the logic. JVM is not executing rest of the logic. But in a real time scenario point of view, maybe exception may come. Some reason, somehow, different scenarios point of view, different exception may come. But it doesn't mean like automatically assume you're having 100 lines of logic here. 100 lines of logic. Maybe some problem came here, but it doesn't mean like it has to ignore the rest of 100 lines of logic. It should not be like that, right? So some exception came here, then maybe ignore this line, but move to the next line. So that means we have to make sure going further, even though some problem, so even though some abnormal situations are happens, those are all comes under the exceptions. So those are all comes under the exceptions. So in this case, that's why they are using a word called as exception, exception, exception. So exception is nothing but a Java object only. I'll come back to the details. First, we'll discuss theory point of view. So now, in this case, what is the concept of exception handling here? It is now understand the exception handling. In Java perspective, an exception is all about an unwanted or abnormal, an unwanted event, an unwanted event or abnormal event. Okay, so which occurs during the program execution, execution during the program execution. So yes, it's unwanted only, right? It's a okay, unexpected or unwanted, whatever it is. Until and unless you are not giving b value as 0, you don't have any problem. You don't have any problem. So everything is executed as expected. End of main method, something like that. Until and unless you are making b value as non-zero, I mean, you are not seeing any exception. See, everything, it is reaching to end of main method. But the moment whenever b value became 0, it became like this. So then some problem came here. Okay, that is also okay. Now I made my b value as something like 20. That's okay. Now see here, continuation to this, assume some logic I have here. I think you know arrays already. Now I created an array like this, values. Okay, so I'm creating integer array, some values, whatever it is, 1 comma 2 comma something, 100 comma 200 comma 300, something like that. Now this is an array which is having three values, so that means in this case index starts from 0. First index is 0, last index is length minus 1. So that means index point of view 0 to 2. 0, 1, 2. So now let's see here what I'm trying to do. Values of 2 I given. So the moment I given 2, what will happen in this case? Again. Okay. So understand again flow. The moment you started executing the Java, this program again, what will happen? Enters into main method, 444, 20, making division. It will come here, 444 by 20, probably you will see 20, 20, 20, 20 or something like that. So it's a valid operation in this case. You will not see any exception because you are having 20 value this time. So division will happen successfully. Some result value comes here, 20 point something like that. And then making division is completed. You will see that result is being printed. Then JVM moves to this line number 19. Because you know that in Java JVM, always the execution flow happens line by line. So then it will come here. It will come here in the memory point of view. What will happen? An array will be created 0, 1, 2 index, and here you have value called as 100 and 200, 300. Okay, now you are asking, I want value of index 2. So index 2 point of view, what is the value? 300. So that means you are getting it back 300 and 300 is being printed and end of the main method is printed. So that means the line number 1 to end of the main method, first line to last line, everything is good. Everything is good and you will. So now JVM happily terminates the JVM process because it is executed entire main method and it is leaving the main method, right? So this is all about happy path. Now see here, end of main method. You got 300 also. Everything is good. Now some reason a person entered a value here 3. The moment enters 3, what will happen this time? So it is a 0 index, it is a 1 index, it is a 2 index. There is no 3 index. But I entered 3. Then what JVM is trying to do? Compilation point of view, I don't have any error. When I'm executing program, now what will happen? This will be executed. But here, when JVM comes to line number 21, it is going to the array called as values and trying to pick up index 3 value. But actually it is having 0, 1, 2 is the index. 2 is the last index, but we are expecting 3. So then JVM encountered a abnormal situation, an unwanted event, like it doesn't find it. I mean, in this case, JVM not found third index, not found. So that means it's a unexpected, unwanted, abnormal scenario to the JVM. Then JVM immediately what it is trying to do is, hey man, there is no index with 3 like that. It will display some exception. It will throw some exception. It will throw some exception. It will display some message and it will leave the main method. So that means again the rest of the logic is not executed. Assume again you are having 20 lines of logic after this line, but that entire logic is not executed. So immediately it is leaving this line. Immediately it is leaving like this line. So that means this is not at all executing. And here some problem it found, and immediately JVM is displaying some message, hey man, I found some issue at line number 21. So because of some index, like that it will leave the flow and it will not execute rest of the logic. It will not execute rest of the logic. So that means, now see here again, I'll take one more example. Now for example, I have a method here, public, I'm creating one more Java method, static, whatever it is, whatever method it is, get info, whatever it is. So some message. Now see here, sys out of executing get info method. So now I'm calling this get info method after this line. After this line. Now, for example, if I given again index 2 only or index 0, whatever it is. So what will happen? B point of view data is good. Everything will happen. Value of 0, 100 will come. 100 is printed. Immediately you are calling get info method. So that means this line is executed successfully in this scenario because 0 index is there. So then JVM happily moved to the next line because this line executed successfully without any issue. Then JVM move to the next line. But you are saying in this case, go to next method, calling another method. So then JVM enters in this case and JVM executes this method. And once this method finish it, then again JVM will come back to the next line of the main method. Then again this line will be printed. So that means after this line printed, this line will be printed. So that means everything is executed from line number 1 to line number last line. And in this case, you call another method that is also executed. Happy path. So it will be called as happy path. That means everything expected as expected, everything is executed. So right or wrong, see. See, executing get info method, end of main method, everything is good. Until and unless at what time maybe b value is becoming 0 or maybe out of index. You given some wrong index. So some problem may occur. For example, now I given index 5 value. So in the line number 21, I given 5. Now observe the output. So without exception, this is the output. Okay. Now what I did, I given index as 5. So index 5, array index 5. So you know that there is no index 5, 0, 1, 2. So that means now what will happen, understand, as per my previous explanation. See, at line number 21 level, it is saying index out of bounds. So it is trying to say, hey man, your array size itself 3. Size itself 3. That means index becomes 0 to 2. But you given 5. So that means out of the range, like JVM faced some abnormal situation or unwanted, okay, or unexpected, some abnormal things happened with respect to index. Then what JVM did immediately observe, it is throwing some error message or sorry exception message here like this at line number 21. See, line number also it is giving very clearly, line number 21. In this line it found some situation. So that's why what JVM is doing, immediately it is wrapping the process, it is terminating the process, it is displaying the error message, exception message, and it is terminating the execution flow. So that means this method is not executed, this method is not executed. But I want to make sure, even though exception came, even though some reason, even though out of range index came, JVM should not leave the flow immediately. JVM should skip JVM. So now that is what handling. Now, right now we are not handling exception. Right now what's happening? You are getting exceptions. We are getting exceptions and JVM is taking decision based on the exception. But as a developer going further, if there is a possibility or probability of getting any kind of exception, okay, we have to make sure in a positive scenario and negative scenario point of view. Positive means everything is good, everything will go in a smooth flow. In a negative scenario, something out of index is the negative scenario. Even though some exception came or maybe some negative scenarios may happen or abnormal situation happen, I want to make sure skipping this line. So my second solution is I'm suggesting like this. Okay, when some problem occurs, skip that line, but don't leave the flow. In this case, what happening? If you observe, by default leaving the flow, JVM leaving the execution flow. But I want to handle as a developer going further, I will write some logic to handle the exceptions. That is what comes under the exception handling. So that means if I started doing some techniques, applying some other things to handle the exceptions. That's all scenario comes under the exception handling. Then what will happen outcome is once you are applying the exception handling, so you are adding some techniques to handle the exceptions. This is what concept called as exception handling, guys. So the moment you are handling the exception, for example, assume again this line level it got an error. Then what JVM will do is based on our exception handling techniques. So I'll handle like this. Okay, you got problem here. You got problem here. Okay, then don't. In general, what happening? Immediately it is terminating the process. Not going to next lines. Not at all going to next lines. But after exception handling, I'll make sure this line at line level, if any exception it got, even though exception comes, I'll make sure I will inform to JVM, hey JVM, don't ignore the other rest of the methods or other logic execution. Okay, if you got an exception here, ignore this line. Okay, don't terminate the process, don't close the execution flow. Please move to the next line. Please move to the next line. Like that, I'll make sure. Okay, I'll make sure logic is executed even though abnormal situations are happened. I'll make sure the rest of the flow is executed. The rest of the flow is executed like that. For example, if you see here again, now for example, you given value index 1 here, that is okay. Now it's all happy path. Now in this case, everything is good. See, everything is good. Division happened. You got data from the array also. Everything is good. Even you called other method, end of main method, everything is happened successfully. Now assume again a person entered b value as 0. Then what will happen? Now in this case, the problem comes here. The moment problem comes here, what will happen? This entire logic will not be executed. So problem came here, but what happened to this rest of the logic? So JVM is doing what? See, by default JVM is saying like, hey man, I found some issue at line number 12. See, line number 12, and it's not executing the rest of the logic. Rest of the logic. This is the default behavior of Java execution. Now, as a developer, now it's all our technique. As a developer, as a Java developer, we will handle the exceptions. We will handle these kind of abnormal scenarios. So, as a developer, we have to write a logic always in a positive and negative scenario point of view. That means if everything is good, then that's okay. If everything is good, it's a positive scenario. End to end, everything is executed. See here, it's a positive scenario. But there might be a chance of, okay, maybe negatives. For example, that's what, right? Who implemented this calculator? This is a software. This is a software. Now the until and unless I am giving 80 some other values, you are seeing some result. But the moment I given 55 divided by something 0, and whenever I clicked on equal symbol, see the calculator is very clearly giving me a message cannot divided by 0. So that means they are handling the negative scenario, that calculator application handling the negative scenario. Very clearly they are observing, okay, 0, that they are displaying this message. And they are saying like, okay Dilip, you can't do the division with 0. They are displaying a proper information as well as they are asking us to do next action. Similarly, in this case also, who knows, they may enter b value 0. It doesn't mean like if any problem comes here, immediately you have to handle this scenario. Handle the negative scenario, handle the exception scenario, handle this scenario, and then move to next lines of logic. Next lines of logic. That means I will handle this line, even though some problem came, negative scenario point of view, 0 came, I will handle this scenario and then I'll move to the next lines. We have to make sure JVM executing rest of the lines also. Otherwise, what's happening by default? See, it found problem at line number 12. Immediately it is not at all executing this rest of the logic. Rest of the logic is not at all executing. It found problem here. You're not handling the exception. Then JVM, okay, I'm done. I faced some problem here. I'm leaving my main method. Like that, it is just leaving the main method by throwing this message. It should not be, right, in a real-time application. There might be a, there might be a, always there will be a negative scenario. Whenever there is a positive scenario, definitely there will be a negative scenario. So that means as a developer point of view, we have to handle these kind of scenarios by thinking as a precaution point of view or whatever it is. We have to handle this kind of exception scenarios. That means what is the meaning of handling exception here? It is you are making sure rest of the logic is also executed. Even though exception comes, rest of the logic is executed. So I'll tell you how to handle exception and all, but just say one line I am writing. I'll tell you what is this try and all. Don't worry. I'm just showing you. Going further, how that looks like. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Okay. So leave it. Just see here. Now I b value is what 0 only. So now see here. I'll tell you what I'm did. This is exception handling. How to do what is try. What are the rules and regulations? We will discuss. I'm just trying to show you. Once you are understanding the exception handling, how things are happening. See, earlier you got right. Now I made some handling. Now I'm trying to handle this scenario with some proper things. Now see, I'm executing the same b value as 0 only. See now what happened? Even though b value is 0, what happened? Line number 14 level, some exception came. Something is happened. Some abnormal is happened. But what happened? I am able to make sure the rest of the logic is also executed. See, making division and I am giving very clear information. Hey man, please check b value should not be 0. Now for example, b value given 10 or maybe non-zero value. Then what will happen? This line will be executed successfully. Then it's a success scenario. Then it will move to the next line. Then there is no problem. Only thing is when something is happened abnormal things point of view, then you have to make sure handling the exception. So see here, the moment I handle the exception, I can see rest of the logic is executed. It's not disturbing. Now JVM not terminating the main method immediately. Hey man, I got found some problem at line number 14. So I'm not executing rest of the logic. It's not like that. Based on exception handling, it is moving to the rest of the logic. So if you don't have a handling, so see here again. Now see again, you don't have exception handling. That's why you got this problem. So that is what called as exception handling in this case. Now you may have a question. We may have one more confusion. Somewhat you understood like exception is all about. At runtime, mostly you will get some abnormal situations or unexpected things, something like invalid index. Okay, so something like divided by zero. Not only this, tomorrow we will have a lot of other exceptions, guys. Not only this, even we can create our own exceptions also. As of now we know arithmetic operations and array operations, that's why we can see this kind of exceptions. But tomorrow when you are understanding collection framework, some other things, okay, advanced Java, Spring Boot, you will see so many types of exceptions. Even as a developer we can create our own exceptions also, we will see that. But how to handle exception, how many ways we can handle exception and all, we will see step by step. But my next point here it is, I'm keep on talking about, okay, sorry, let me give like this index 5 point of view. What is the output you got? Yeah, I'll give index 5 here. So that I want to make sure. Okay, so in case if I give an index 5, so then this is what exception you got. Okay, index point of view. I given. So this is the variation we observed. So that means when everything is good, flow is good. When something is index 5 out of bounds exception, because index you have only two index. So that's why you got line number 22 level some error, but you can't see other things are executed. So happy path, somewhat abnormal situation point of view because of index value. So like that. Okay, let's do one thing. Let me save it first. Okay, so now this is okay. Now the next question is, what is the point of exception? Why can't we call it as error? So generally, in general, we used to call anything in our system, in our day-to-day life, or when you're doing something in our day-to-day life, not only programming point of view, When something is happened, something wrong, something went wrong, or maybe we used to call it as some error. So when you are working on the computer, you found some issue. So then you used to say like, hey, I got some error. Can you check this? So now what is the difference between exception and error? So why they are giving name as exception handling? Why they given concept as exception handling? So that means my question here it is exception versus error. Why can't we call it as error handling? With respect to Java point of view, why can't we call it as error handling? So, and as well as first we should know difference between exception versus error. Then you can answer this question. Error handling is possible or not in Java perspective. So first of all, what is the difference between exception and error? Why they are giving a word called as exception handling, not error handling? Why they introduced a word as exception? And if you see here also, they are using a word called as always exception, exception, exception. Okay, not error. Why? So that means with respect to Java point of view, programming point of view, what is the difference between exception and error? So then can we call exception handling as a error handling? Or and all we will discuss points. So it will not take much time. Let's concentrate next 5-10 minutes. See here. Okay, I used to call every time exception only. But what is the point difference between exception and error? Let's understand. Okay, so what is the difference between exception and error? Let's try to understand. Okay, so in this case, what is an error? So we said exception is all about some unwanted event which occurs during the program execution and all. But what is an error? So with respect to Java point of view, what is an error here? It is an error is not recoverable or irrecoverable, whatever it is. I'm making a simple English point of view. So an error is not recoverable. Okay, scenarios. So what is the point here? It is. I'll try to understand. I'll try to give you a small overview. See here. If you observe here, result A by B, you are getting some problem and you are handling that problem. Okay. And you are seeing rest of the logic is executed. As a developer, what you're doing, the moment you felt like some problem is coming here, you are able to handle it. You are able to handle it. You are able to recover from that situation also. So that means in this case, what is the point I can say here? It is exceptions are recoverable from the when some abnormal scenario is happened from that abnormal scenario from that unwanted situation. Okay, so that means we are whenever we are calling it as an exception. So when we found an exception, we can recover from exception. So what is the point of recovering from exception means? You can handle that exception. You can handle those. But when it comes to error point of view, right now I given you not recoverable. Not recoverable. That means as a developer, we can't handle. We cannot handle. So what I'll give you some scenario. Okay, what kind of errors it is. For example, sometimes it's very difficult to show you right now. You will get some error called as out of memory error, guys. In Java itself, you will get sometimes out of memory error. So what is the meaning of out of memory error here? It is, see, it's an error. It's not an exception. So what is the point of out of memory error? See here. See, when I'm doing additions, divisions, okay, array operations, some other things and all, as a developer, I know that divided with 0, definitely it will cause some problem. Out of the range, it will cause some problem. As a developer, I know all this knowledge. So that based on that, I will handle this scenario here. I'll write some handling scenarios. I'll write some handling scenarios so that no one should not enter more than 2 index like that. I'll make some mechanisms here. So as a developer, I know how to handle these scenarios by using if conditions or whatever it is, or maybe exception handling scenarios, whatever it is. I can make some alternatives here. So that means these are all comes under the exceptions. When your code is producing something, understand the thing. As a developer, whenever you are implementing a logic, whenever you written a code, your code is making some abnormal things or whatever it is. Those are all comes under the exceptions. And those exceptions point of view you can handle. You can handle those exceptions. You can recover from those exceptions. But errors will not produce from the logic. Understand the point. I'm giving one more point is in Java perspective, I'm telling you guys. Okay, so when it comes to errors are always generated, okay, by infrastructure, not from the logic. But not from logic. So that means exceptions are generated by the logic. Exceptions are always comes from the logic what we implemented as a developer. So exceptions are always generated from the logic. So who implemented the logic? Developer. Who implemented the logic? Developer. So as a developer, whatever the logic you implemented and whatever the negative scenarios you are expecting, so that you can handle it. As so I'm the author, I'm the person writing the logic. I know where bad things will happen, where good things will happen. Based on that, I can write my own logic. Like based on that, I can avoid the, like I will make sure if condition index is less than 2, something like that. I can make some mechanisms. I can prevent my logic should not make any nonsense. Like that, I can write some logic. Because I am the developer, I know all the things, how to handle, how to avoid the exceptions, all these things. But in this case, I said errors point of view, what I'm trying to say it is errors are always generated by infrastructure, but not from the logic. That means in Java exception versus error point of view, errors will never ever come from your what? Your logic. Those are all come from the infrastructure. Now, what is the point of infrastructure? So I used a word called as infrastructure, right? So one of the example point of view, what is the meaning of infrastructure? And you have very less errors in Java point of view. One of the famous error is out of memory error. So this is error. But exceptions wise, you have so many in Java. Hundreds of exceptions. I mean, I can say like more than 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 exceptions, or you can create our own exceptions also. It's all based on the logic. But errors point of view, errors will never generate from the logic. Errors are always generated from the infrastructure. One of the famous error is out of memory error. What is the infrastructure? Let's understand here. For example, I have a computer like this. Assume I have a laptop, maybe one 10 years back laptop or whatever it is. Now, my laptop RAM size is 512 GB. Sorry, 512 not GB, 512 MB. 512 MB. What? RAM size. Now understand, you open this laptop and you started creating some Java project. Okay, fine. And you created Java project and you started executing your Java project. So you written the logic, you written programs, you written logic and everything. So you written programs, that nothing but you implemented the logic. That's all cool. Now you started executing your program. Now what you are trying to do in this case is you are trying to execute your program. The moment you are executing the program, see this laptop is having very less amount of memory guys. 512 MB only. The overall laptop size itself 512 MB. So this is RAM and its size is 512 MB. Generally our laptops is 8 GB, 16 GB RAMs, right? Even sometimes we will feel what 8 GB is very less, 16 GB is also very less. But here I'm talking about somewhat very old scenario point of view or whatever it is. Now you written some logic and everything. You started executing the program. The moment you started executing the program, I used to say, right, Java compiler dot class files, then Java loads those dot class files into JVM memory. right? I used to use a word called as JVM memory. So we are keep on discussing a word called as JVM memory. Yes, obviously. Now assume when you started executing your program and Java is installed in your computer, and whenever you executed your programs, a JVM memory is allocated. So you know that JVM memory is allocated in the where it will allocate it will not allocate on the hard disk memory. It will allocate on the RAM memory. Now assume JVM occupied. Okay, you know that RAM memory generally what will happen, guys? If you observe here, RAM memory is shared by, see, for example, in my system, 75% RAM memory is shared by Eclipse, some other Google Chrome, all these things. So JDK is also something, if you observe somewhere else, you may find it, but leave it. But see, that means RAM memory being shared by multiple things, Paint application, Java application, OpenJDK, JDK, something like that, Chrome, Eclipse, Zoom meeting, all these things. So similarly, in this case, sorry guys. Now in this case, assume your RAM memory is occupied for a lot of other things and you are just free with only 100 MB. By the time you are executing your program, your RAM is having only 100 MB memory is free. Okay, now you started executing the program. Slowly JVM memory occupying your RAM memory, whatever free handed it is available. Free memory is 100 MB. Now assume JVM memory is more than, slowly it is reaching 100 MB, greater than 100 MB. Because you are executing a lot of programs. Assume you are executing a big logic or whatever it is. So a lot of variables, lot of objects got created, then internally a lot of memory it will occupy. Now assume it completed 100 MB. So then that means RAM memory went to 0. Okay, and if you observe when you, I don't know, let me try to show you that. Eclipse ini file something is there, I think, yeah. Open, yeah. If you see here, I think somewhere else. Nowadays, yeah, we are getting big systems. That's why we are not getting these problems. See, it went to 15, 12 years, 30 years back, 15 years back also, when I joined into HCL, all this. At the time, we don't have this much infrastructure. That means laptops with 16 GB RAM. At the time, getting a laptop with 4 GB RAM itself a big thing. So then we used to encounter that out of memory issues very frequently because of we RAM itself very low size. Then we used to get that something like that. So here somewhere I think you can allocate RAM memory also in the Eclipse point of view. I think this one 256, no, somewhere else. I'll give you. That's what nowadays we are not using. See Java version 21. Somewhere you can allocate GVM. I think this one. I'm not sure exactly. I forgot it. But somewhere you can allocate JVM memory size. You can define JVM memory size from Eclipse point of view also. That means when you started Eclipse point of view, what is the JVM memory, how much JVM memory it will occupy point of view, you can do that generally. Even if you observe here also task manager. So if you observe here OpenJDK, earlier we saw OpenJDK is occupying some 150 MB. So that means Java only, OpenJDK. So that means it is occupying this much memory, 160 MB it is occupying. That too, I'm not running any Java application. So that means you are running a huge Java application, your RAM memory will be consumed. So such a way. So that means now your RAM memory became 0. That means what happened? Your JVM memory is full. You allocated 100 MB for the JVM memory, and that 100 MB memory is full. Now that means your programs are not executing. Your programs are not executing. So you are getting hanging situation, something like that. Your system got hanged because all RAM memory went to 0. Your JVM memory also went to 0. That is one scenario. Then you will get out of memory error. So in this case, as a developer, can you handle this situation? Can we handle this situation as a developer with logic? That's what my point. With the logic. So that means, are you going to write some logic and can you fix this issue? No. Why? It's not problem with the logic. It's problem with your system. It's problem with your infrastructure. You allocated JVM memory 100 MB and that 100 MB got full. So that means if you are making your JVM memory is 2 GB, 2 GB, then again your project will work. Your logics will be executed, your entire application will work, but you allocated only 100 MB. So that means in this case, as a developer, can we handle this situation by writing the logic? 100% no. Why? It's not problem with logic. Logic and everything is good. It's problem with this error you got, out of memory error you got because of the infrastructure. Infrastructure means what? Your laptop, your system, your RAM memory. You are having only 512 GB, 512 MB memory. Now after that I said, hey man, I'm logic project wise you don't have any problem. Infrastructure problem. Now after that you increase RAM size to 16 GB. RAM, okay, you taken same project and you taken that project into RAM size where you are having 16 GB RAM, and there you allocated JVM memory. Out of 16 GB you allocated JVM memory 2 GB. Now what will happen? Your programs executed successfully. So that means from this what you understood, these kind of things will comes under the errors. So errors are always not recoverable from the logic. So until and unless you are changing the system, you are increasing the RAM size, JVM memory, especially RAM size, you can't do anything with Java program execution. So these kind of things will be called as errors. So that means in Java as a developer, we can handle only exceptions, not errors. Errors is not in the our hands. So in Java perspective, something is happened with respect to execution flow. Those are all comes under the exceptions. Something is beyond the logic and not in our hands, like something like JVM memory sizes, something RAM memory is full, CPU memory. For example, assume you are having very less configuration of laptop. Sometimes I think you saw that CPU memory will become 100% usage, then your laptop will hang up. So that means there you can't do anything. It's problem with your laptop. It's problem with your infrastructure. So your logic is good, but you move the moment you started your Java project, your system got hanging. The reason is why it is trying to looking for some good quality of JVM memory and some kind of CPU usage, but you don't have that much infrastructure. So then immediately your Java program will say something like, "Hey, out of memory error," or something. It can't execute properly. It will hang up. The reason is infrastructure issue. Then you take in same project and you ran on a good server or good system which is having high end configuration, then again it will work. So in that case, as a developer point of view, you can't do anything with errors. So in this case, JVM memory you got out of memory. Why? It's all about infrastructure issue, but not logic. But whatever I explained earlier, this is in our hands. I know that whenever 0 comes, definitely this line will fail. I know that whenever out of the length it went, it will fail. So that I can handle the logic. I can make sure something, if okay, something like value, like index value is less than values dot length, something like I can do some kind of logic handling or whatever it is. It's up to in my hands. Even though exception comes, like earlier I written some statements, right? I can handle that. I can write some extra lines of logic. I can handle positive and negative scenarios, but these kind of issues we can't handle those. So whenever you are encountering these kind of things, then you will get the errors. So errors are not recoverable. That's what I said. Errors are always generated by infrastructure related, but not from our regular logic. Okay, but not from our regular logic. So that is all. And errors are not recoverable scenarios, so you have to fix it in separate way, but not by the logic. But exceptions are always comes under an abnormal situation during program executions, and you can make sure writing some extra logic, you can handle those scenarios. That's all comes under the exception handling. So that's why now the question is, can we call exception handling, error handling both are same? Means error handling is possible or not, means no. As a developer you can't do anything. It's not in your hands. Now can we call error handling and exception handling both are same? No, completely different. Both are different. So both are different. So as a developer, we can do only exception handlings, not error handling. So that means from tomorrow onwards, the next 2 3 classes will take only about exception handling. And tomorrow, when you're working for any project, real-time applications, or wherever you go, Java, Spring, Spring Boot, microservices, or whatever it is, you may encounter always exceptions, not errors. You will always get exception like this. Like you got already exceptions, right? I will tell you what is this array index out of bounds exception, null pointer exception. You got earlier like division exception also, right? So for example, arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, so many exceptions will be there. I'll tell you what is the arithmetic exception and null pointer exception. So you will have a lot of exceptions. We will see those details tomorrow. So that means today we understood only theory point of view and what is the overall view of exception versus error we understood. So tomorrow we will see what is the meaning of exception, throwing an exception, how to handle the exceptions. So how these messages are coming from where. So what is this package? What is the real meaning of exception? All these details. Programmatical point of view we'll see tomorrow.